Okie dokie. So let's call the meeting to order. My computer says it's 7:05. And the first item is to adoption of the agenda. So has everybody had a chance to look at the agenda? Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda? That looks like
I'll
Melanie.
make the motion
Oh,
to adopt the agenda.
wonderful. Thank you, Scott.
I second it.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's everybody. Great. One item down. Next, the minutes from the December meeting. So everybody
I'll
had
make a motion to adopt the minutes.
You're motion crazy, Scott.
And I'm really on the move.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thanks, John. All right, did anybody have any questions or corrections?
It's too late for that.
But we don't, isn't it, then we still have to approve them, right? So. All right, all in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. All right. So next up is the 2022 planning calendar. So a couple things I just wanted to mention there. I gotta adjust my screen. So it's early in the year, but it's never too early to start planning ahead. A couple of things. Oops, sorry, one second. Couple of things that are different for this year. I did add a new tab to this document. Last month, we talked about having a member of the board write a little blurb for the newsletter each month. So I started a tab for planning that. I sent Kim an item for January that would be about the annual appeal, thank you kind of thing. One last plug for the annual appeal as well. And what I was thinking we might be able to, we also included I believe I included the information about looking for board members and youth committee chair. I thought if next month, if we have the new, if we have website updates done, we could consider a message about that, but it's open to suggestion. Just wanted to get the ball rolling because I think it is a good idea and a way for us to connect a little bit more with the community that's engaged with us. So that's on that planning calendar now in a new tab. Like I say, up for discussion. It's just there for getting the conversation started. In January, I have on there that we usually reserve the fire hall for the Halloween party once. So I think we probably need to make sure we have, hi Ed, have the dates set for all of those, which we can follow up with Rebecca. But getting that on the calendar is something I think we try to do early in the year. So that would be up coming up now. And then we'll talk about this as part of policy and other things we're going to do, but I think if we can post a notice for all of our board meeting schedules, and now I know that Sarah had set up a link that was good for the whole year's series of meetings. So if we're a little bit of a holding pattern with the website updates getting done and everything. We're trying not to put too much content on the old site until we have that done, but that'll be something important to post per policy. And then coming up on the February 2nd is the next core trustee training. So anyone who has not gone through that or hasn't gone through it lately, I would recommend pursuing that. They do a nice job of presenting the material. It is remote right now. Do it from your home. And trustees are now going to be required to have 2 hours of training per year. The last training thing I was at, people asked if there was any more detail available on that, and so far, no. So Tim said that they would be sending that when they have more information about it. So that's the update there. Other things coming up, the scholarship application I think that's also something we try to get done in February. So as a heads up of things coming up.
I'm not sure that we usually do it in February. I feel like it's done later in the year, like March, April. I could be wrong, but
Yeah. It might be one of those things that's on the calendar for February, but we don't actually do it in February for whatever.
Does it hurt to do it early? I feel like a lot of times kids are applying for other scholarships before we get our information out.
Well, to start it early, I don't see any harm. To end it early, could be extra pressure. They may be doing application, maybe doing all kinds of things. Just giving them more time, though, that doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I mean, presuming that we
More
don't,
visibility.
yeah, and I don't think we have many changes that we have to do for that, right? I mean, it's kind of just update the basics, so but maybe we
Yeah.
can shoot for that. Okay. And we have a guest star. So cute. No way, it's so cute.
I guess we have public, that's what we have.
If there's any public comment that's spitting up on your shoulder, I'm not going to appreciate that. Only positive feedback. Okay, any other questions on or comments on calendar and upcoming things that we should be keeping in mind?
Has the visit date for the May and his crew been set? Mays and his crew?
no, I haven't heard from them yet.
Okay.
All right, so let's just move along because we'll talk more about that in one of the reports. So director's report. Kim, thanks for sending that out. Posting that.
Okay.
Right.
So obviously for upcoming programs, we had to cancel all of our in-person programs, which was the Wills and Healthcare Proxy, Women in the Military, book club has gone virtual, story time, gonna go virtual. I'm gonna do another story time for Chinese New Year. So we're gonna do some more virtual stuff and more things to, pick up packets and do take and makes again. We do have Greg Sidor is going to do another thing on the Battle of Midway, another virtual program. He's the one who did the World War II stuff last year. And that's going to be on February 10th at 7 o'clock on Zoom. So that's going to be my big push for next week. The same thing with Chinese New Year virtual story time. And then I'm going to do another virtual story time sometime at the end of February. I've got it on here for February 23rd. I'm not sure what the topic's going to be yet. I've got to decide that. Our
Tim, it
take
seems
home-
like, sorry, it seemed like that your the virtual PJ story time, that seemed like pretty good attendance.
It was fantastic attendance. It had 17 children received kits, like the books and all the things to the activities. And we had 13 children attend the actual virtual story time. So I think that doing it once or twice a month instead of once a month or once every week is probably better. That way you don't have Zoom fatigue. So that's why I was going to try and start doing it at least do twice a month for the next few months and see how it goes with that. Who knows, if things get better, then maybe we'll try and do it in person again and see if we can meet somebody in here and do it as well. But the ornament making was also very popular. We had kits went out to 20 children, 7 teenagers, and 12 adults received them. So, and it was just taking throughout the month of December. So that was a really good thing. Before we closed down, we had Dungeons and Dragons and Mahjong. And unfortunately, Mahjong was getting really popular. We had, at one point, we had 8 people actually join us, and we just started Saturdays. And then we had to stop. So we'll see how that goes. The book club was also, that's still going well too. You've got between 5 and 6 people every time. And then the blood drive, we had to cancel this in December because for some reason the Red Cross scheduled a blood drive here in Stephentown and also on the same day in Berlin. So they didn't have enough staff to go around. So they decided to cancel hours and hold Berlin's instead. So we'll see. I have another one scheduled for April 19th. I don't know if it's good with the fire department yet, but it's on the Red Cross's blood cap or schedule for the 19th. So hopefully we'll be able to do that. No one is, what's that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you mind if I interrupt one quick
Nope, go
second? With the ornament kits, which I thought it was really cool the way you guys had the stuff laid out for people to pick out and take things in the community room. And I thought it would probably, I was wondering if, not everyone goes into the community room, but I know I did when I went in there. I wasn't planning on getting them, and I saw it and it looked so fun. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get some of these, and it was really fun to do. I meant to post that, but I think if maybe while we're still operating in this mode, having things where people coming in and out of the library can see it even more
Good idea.
prominently, people might be inclined to pick it up and do it then.
Maybe we can put them in the old section of the building instead of in the community room. That way people can see them better.
Yeah. If there's room and everything, but it just struck me.
Let me just write down visible. Okay. I think that's a good idea. And I think that hopefully we can try and, I'm sure we can find some more spaces to do that and get some things together. I have not seen John Wall, so I'm assuming that he is no longer using the community room right now for in-person yoga classes. I'm just guessing that everything is pretty much closed down for him as well at this point. In terms of circulation, our circulation is it went up again this past month, which is good. So, but it's around the same. Everything's kind of to be holding steady. So if you look at our total circulation for 2021 and you see the red lines are up so much higher at the beginning of the year, those are from the numbers of books that went out or DVDs or other items that went to other libraries during the pandemic when everything was online and, shut down. But as the years progressed, you can kind of see how we've definitely flattened out and gone back to what seems like more of a normal pattern of circulation. So we're trying, we'll see, hopefully it'll just continue to get back up to normal and always goes down in the winter, back up in spring, summer, so it's definitely it moves around, doesn't usually stay the same. And we had about the same number of visits this month as we did in November. So we're in the mid to upper 300s for a number of people coming in the building. Again, we're not seeing as many, I'm sure it's because of COVID and people not wanting to go out and do things. We had one person do curbside pickup last week. Other than that, we haven't had any curbside pickups since May or June. And our numbers for active cards, for patrons with active cards, have stayed pretty much exactly the same, which means that even expired cards have now, everything's leveling off. So we're putting out the last of our mailing to get people to come back. And we have had quite a few people calling to say, I want to renew my library card. So it's actually been it's helping. So it seems to be, hopefully we'll be able to get all of that stuff updated as best we can. We have a lot of people who in our old system or in the system, we have some people who have passed away. We have some people who have moved away. So I'm trying to just update all that and getting information so that it's correct. Oh, I see a very big typo in here. I'll have to change this. We did not buy 810 DVDs in my collection development. We put 10 DVDs into the system, not 810. All the other numbers are correct though. Okay, so the things that I was able to do this month, DA meeting. The DLD has now stated that all libraries must go back to in-person hours in order to count towards your state mandated minimum hours. We're okay with that because we're already open again, but if there are libraries out there who are still doing curbside only, those curbside hours do not count towards our mandated hours. So, I mean, if we ended up having a problem where we had to shut the building down because of COVID, that's okay. They're not going to do anything about that. But if we were in for months and months at a time, only doing curbside, we'd have issues. So as far as the state's concerned. So far we have to stay open unless, you know, we have an outbreak and we have to close for a week or so, which better not happen. The DA, we approved automatic renewals for all libraries. So what's going to happen on February 1st is that's going to be put into place. Right now, there's some weird stuff happening where Joe's been testing out the new system. So some people might get some emails saying, oh, your library item is up for automatic renewal. Well, it's not really. It'll be in February when that actually happens. And it should only have that message today. Tomorrow, it should be back up to normal. So what that means, though, is that we're going to have everything's going to be automatically renewed one time for people who are interested in having it. It's just going to happen automatically, obviously it's automatic. And it will be based on our library's loan rules. So if someone has a book out and it's a new book and no one is on the list to wait for it, saying you can, no one's waiting for it, the system will automatically renew. If it sees that there's someone waiting for that item, it will not renew. So it's really just giving people extra time if they're allowed to have it, which is, in my opinion, a good thing. You know, gives them a little bit more time, and it does help for circulation status because that renewal continues with circulation. So people will get automatic emails saying that their items are up for renewal. They will not get phone calls. So if we have patrons who are on phone call only, they will not get a phone call saying that their items have been renewed. It'll still renew, it just won't tell them that. So the other thing I have is the training. UHLS has also created a training on racial equity, and they have invited staff and board members to sign up if interested. It's a huge program that they've actually hired another company to come in and do. And it's the kind of a thing where we can sign up to do this training as a board or as a group, however we would want to do it. It can be they've got a couple of different menu options. I don't honestly remember them off the top of my head, but it's something that we might want to look into. I know that's not usually an issue that we have, but it's still good to be up on, you know, different ways to deal with everything and make sure that we're being as diverse as we possibly can in the library. So I will send you all the link and we can see what we might want to do maybe for next month. Just kind of come up with some ideas if anyone's interested in it. And then I might see if the staff want to do it as well. Let's see. So
Is there any time frame on that, or do we have, is it like being offered throughout the year, or?
I think it's being offered throughout the year, but I have to check. It's I have to go through all my emails to find where they have, it's called the menu. So I'll find, as soon as I find it, I'll send it out to everybody.
Thank you.
The annual report portal is going to be open soon, so I might not see you for a few weeks. So today will be like hi and goodbye. I don't know when it's going to be open, but it'll be open soon. So the meeting with Paul Mays to kick off the master plan went really well. I see that that's on the agenda for another time slot, so I'll not say anything too much about that. Let's see. And I wanted to say thank you to everyone who has helped out so far here at the library and the community, who's helped Debbie with trying to get her back on her feet, and her daughter. They are doing okay right now. Debbie is living on the property in a camper, and she says she's warm enough. She says she's doing okay. And she's completely overwhelmed with the response that the community has given her. She said that she just has never expected the amount of support that she's gotten, and she's incredibly grateful. Her daughter's found an apartment to live in, so she's doing okay as well. And I know that they still have a GoFundMe if people are still donating, and we still get a couple of donations every couple of days for her. So the only problem is that she also broke her foot. So she is in a boot and can't walk very well. I saw her last week and she was not able to stand very long, and we talked for a while, but she's definitely not comfortable. So I think her daughter is supposed to be cleaning the building. It has not been cleaned in a while, so I'm going to actually touch base tomorrow and find out what's going on, because we need to either find someone to take over for a couple of months while she's healing, or figure out how that's all settled. But just so you all know, I will be working on that tomorrow and getting her back in and figuring out where things go. So yeah, the breaking of the foot was definitely not a good thing for poor Debbie. The other thing to know is that we had a patron request that we put an item into our collection, and I did not feel it was a item that was appropriate for the collection. I have since had a conversation with him and we've talked about it. He is not happy with my decision, and he believes that he's thinking about whether or not he's going to come to the board with the decision, as you know, I don't know why I'm losing my words, but he's deciding whether or not he's going to fill out the paperwork to come to the board for that decision as well. So if it happens, he has not yet picked up that paperwork, so I don't know that he's actually going to do it, but just so you are all aware, it could happen for next month. I don't know. I haven't seen him since this happened, so I'm not sure where he's at with everything, but it was definitely an interesting, it was a new thing for me, because we've never had that happen before, where someone's actually been, wanting to talk about why it is that I said no to something. So
What was the item in question?
it was a book on alternative treatments to cancer. However, the 4 out of the 10 chapters or so were all dedicated to one specific product called something, I don't know, but it was something that was, it used to be called something cancer something, and the FDA actually told this company they had to stop producing it and calling it this, because it was being seen as a treatment for cancer that was FDA approved, and it was not. It's so I did not feel comfortable putting something on that seemed like it was more of an advertisement for this product than it was anything else. It looked like it was a product, the advertisement for the product within a book, kind of like slyly put in there to say, hey, this is what, buy this product. So I didn't think it was appropriate, because we don't put things in that are advertisements for stuff.
Yeah, no,
yes,
it makes perfect sense. Yeah.
yeah. So we have magazines, we have newspapers. So that was another argument of his. Well, you have newspapers, they have advertisements. And I'm like, yeah, but they have advertisements for everything, not just one product. So we'll see what happens. And if it does happen that he wants to see it come up to you guys, we'll get the book and everyone can take a look at it, and we'll go from there. So we'll see how that goes.
I was at the library for one of the conversations with the patron, and was mostly trying to hide while Kim dealt with it. But I did hear quite a bit of it, and was there for part of it. And she did a great job. You really did a great job, Kim, of explaining your reasons, and you did your homework too. I mean, and you weren't just, you thoroughly researched this. You really looked at it from all different angles and really had your good arguments together in terms of your reasoning. So great job on that. Here it was interesting. Kim and I and Noe attended a UHLS session on challenges at libraries. And it was interesting because most of the focus was on the opposite. It was on people challenging books that are in the collection that shouldn't be in the collection. But they did touch on this topic and about the importance of having a policy regarding, what types of donated books you receive, and having a collection policy and all of that. So it was sort of good timing to attend that and
it was
see
perfect timing. It was perfect. Really what they did though say is that we have to have a very, we need to have a good policy on collection development. which we actually do. And the thing that I realized is that the majority of our policies are in the employee handbook that we created a couple years ago. So like patron codes of conduct, staff code of conduct, all of everything that's pretty essential to the running of the library is in that employee handbook. So we should be able to just kind of cut and paste. It even does have a collection criteria, what we have for our collection criteria. The only thing I would think we should do is make sure we're going and checking all of those policies with ALA, especially the collection development part, and just making sure that it coincides well with what ALA policies have. And we might want to include something about the freedom of information and all that other kinds of stuff. So when we do start going over the policies, that's something we can do. But the handbook, which I just now thought I will upload to the Google Drive.
Oh, good.
Okay, so yeah, so it was definitely an interesting conversation to have and hear the UHLS take on everything. Just made us realize we need to make sure we have stuff settled. I already have a reconsideration form for materials in the library. I basically just stole it from Albany. And so they've always said steal away. So that's what I used for this, but we can then go through and take a look at it as well again. So let's see, I also, to continue on, I've attended a couple of different webinars, one from the CDLC, which was on programming, and then the UHLS one, which was on challenges to the items in the collection. I was supposed to do one today on strategic planning, but for some reason could not get into the webinar, so I unfortunately missed it, but that's okay. Go from there. We met, the brand committee we met, and I'm sure we'll go over all of that as well. And just to let you know, we were closed for Martin Luther King Day on Monday, which was actually good because we probably would have closed for a snow day anyways. So that worked out well. And I think that's pretty much all I had that I needed to share with you guys for this month.
Any
Yes.
questions or comments on the director's report?
And you mentioned the Freedom of Information Law. I was curious in what context.
It's from the ALA has their, what is it called? I'd have to find it, but it's definitely tools and resources, standards. I don't know that it's necessarily the Freedom of Information Law. I just know that there's a statement on intellectual freedom. I'm sorry, not freedom of information.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Yep.
I thought you were talking about something else.
Yeah, no.
Sorry, I just have a question about you said there were more than 300 visits. Over what period of time is that?
It's in a month.
In a month. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So Kim, you started to touch on pandemic phase planning.
Yeah, I don't even know
Kim,
anymore.
what's your plan for the pandemic?
I have no idea. Anyone want to just tell me what to do? Because that would be great, because I have no clue. I don't know if we want to go with the way other town organizations are going, where they're doing, nothing for the next 2 months. I'm lost. So any thoughts, ideas, help?
Will the library be a distribution point for masks or tests?
I don't know that we will. I think that it's the county that's supposed to be getting them, and they have not gotten anything. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what the last I had heard.
I sent in, when the county said they were getting masks, I sent in a request sort of on behalf of a couple of organizations together, and including the library. Never heard back anything. And then the last I heard, they were saying they've told some people they were totally out. They've publicized that they still had some left, but it doesn't seem to have. My impression is that a lot of it went to schools and related to that. So at the moment, I mean, I think we would be happy to be able to have masks for people to pick up, but I don't think we're getting any at this point. I'm similarly perplexed and befuddled at this point in terms of what to do, what's safe, what's not safe. I that we certainly saw quite a spike that seems to be coming down a bit. In terms of in-person programming, I feel like I could be convinced on either argument, to hold it or to not. Certainly, I think that we need to keep masking in place, and however much distancing, and some distancing requirements in place. But it's really hard to figure out what's the right thing to do right now.
I think we should just continue until there's a clear change in the direction, going the other direction with it dropping off in Rensselaer County.
Of course, they don't publish those numbers nicely anymore either. So
You do in the Times.
I think we adopted our mask wearing policy based on what the school was doing. And that seems like a good basis for continuing one way or the other.
Well, the masking is definitely something I think we should continue to do.
Oh, yeah.
It's the in-person programming that I'm not sure about, letting groups of people get together. And right now, I mean, the school, yeah, they're definitely still trying to distance and still trying, but they're still trying to run program, their sports are still up, they're still having lots of different things. Whether or not we want to do the same, I'm not sure. I just know that all of the other town organizations, Historical Society, Veterans, Senior Group, they've all stopped meeting until the end of March.
I'm not so sure that I would support continuing in parallel with the schools. I think there are some compelling educational and socialization arguments with respect to the school that aren't applicable to certainly our programs. So, I mean, and also I'm sort of the view that if you want to do in person, and that's not necessarily just opening up the library, because I think the distancing is, we can manage that. But with respect to programs, I think if we're unwilling to enforce vaccine requirements, then I'd basically be opposed to creating that kind of risk for our clientele.
I think that certainly if we're dealing with adults, we should let them make their own decision. So I'm not on the side of restricting the programs for adults. I think that if they think they're in danger, they shouldn't come. And if they don't, then they should be able to. There's no reason to stifle life if they're willing to take the risks.
That's an argument, but in a certain sense, it also chases away people who are risk averse to people who are willing to take greater risks. So you're making a social judgment there. You can land either way, but
they're making their own social judgment. I don't agree. We're not chasing anybody away. If they don't want to come, they don't come. If we close down the whole program, then nobody gets to go. So at least,
well, you're not closing. The issue is not closing down the whole program. The issue is whether you're going to require people to be vaccinated or not. You can proceed with that program.
No, I thought the discussion was whether we have programs at all.
Well, I think we're talking about a lot of different things. I was saying that if you're going to have programs, I would think we should strongly consider requiring vaccination, which at the same time is going to require people to make sure people are vaccinated, which you're going to get resistance from the staff because they don't want that confrontation. If you're going to hold programs and say you ought to be vaccinated and not check, then I think that poses sort of an unreasonable risk for people, because I wouldn't trust people to be vaccinated. And I think people who aren't vaccinated would come, which increases the level of risk. And I'm sort of just uncomfortable with that. If you basically just say, come on in and you're on your own, that's a different route. So there are a lot of different options. I just think things are so unsettled, and our service, or at least our programming, can wait. I'm sort of more inclined to wait and see what sorts out. It probably will sort out within 4 to 6 weeks. Or not. I don't know.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
it-
And much of it can be done virtually and is being done virtually. I just think that's much more prudent to handle it that way.
Well, I have nothing against doing it virtually, as long as we give the option of coming. I mean, that you should be able to come. If you don't feel comfortable, then you don't come. And I don't see why we have to assure the people that we're vaccinating, or excuse me, that the attendees are vaccinated. That isn't our responsibility. It's, you know, part of life. You go to the grocery store, you hope that people are not going to make you sick, but it's a bit of a risk. Now, life is a risk. I'm in favor of running the programs simultaneously, both remotely, well, not remotely, but online and in person.
I think aside from the risk factor, one thing with the hybrid approach is it's a lot harder to pull off effectively. And I think we would need to practice and make sure we can deliver on the technology to make it an actually enjoyable and worthwhile experience for people to do the hybrid approach. So that's just a different consideration of that, but it's definitely harder to manage and harder to pull off where people can actually hear and see well and all of that kind of thing. So,
I mean, to your point, we've had problems with that just in the board meetings, and you're only talking about 6 or 7 people talking to each other.
Right.
I mean, what kind of problem would we have with board meetings?
You couldn't hear if you were, for the folks who were in the room talking, you couldn't necessarily pick it up when you were operating remotely.
and we did invest in a different microphone to try. We haven't tried that out yet. And then, you really do have to configure the room appropriately so that, and what's going to be the video source. It's definitely, it's a little bit of an added burden and to get that to work properly. For a lot of things, I think, if there's not an expectation of a lot of interaction, I think the virtual works very well for that. If you're trying to do crafts together or something else, but in person may be
The only way, yeah.
the better way. The origami was a little bit hard when we did that virtually. But
Kim, have you heard much feedback from people who were participating that they're unhappy about this, or?
I haven't heard any feedback from anybody. The only feedback I did hear was we had one patron who was uncomfortable with the number of people that we had doing an in-person program. So, they're really, I think everyone understands, and a lot of the people who come to the programming, we probably wouldn't have as many numbers just because people are not going to want to go with things the way they are right now. I know the Mahjong group they were happy to get together, but they also all knew each other. So they knew if one of each other was vaccinated, they knew how their statuses and stuff. So that was a little bit different. So I think that for me, I'm still seeing things as we're still in the middle of all of this. And to Jen's point, it will be really hard to try and figure out and come up with a system of doing hybrid programming, and then have to, like, it could be the kind of thing where we spend a couple of weeks trying to figure it out. And then in 4 weeks, we're, let's say, going back to normal again. So should we just say, let's just virtual for the next 4 weeks or so, see where the numbers are, and then go from there. It kind of seems like the spike is starting to go down a bit. So maybe if we give it a little bit more time, then it'll be better to continue later on. The one thing about the vaccination status that I did talk to the DA, or just kind of brought it up, and I got a big fat, you can't do that. We can't ask for vaccination status because it could be then seen as discriminatory. And since we're a publicly funded building or entity, I should say, we can't discriminate against anybody regardless of vaccination status. So that was a very big thing that I was, when I
Is that a
asked the
country
question,
rule?
I got, what's that?
I'm sorry, is that a county rule? Because it's certainly not state rule. And in the city
No,
of New
I don't
York,
know
you
who-
can't go to a restaurant without identifying whether you have a vaccination.
I don't know if it's a rule or a law. I don't think it is. I think that though it could bring up discrimination suits. We could end up with problems with people saying they're being discriminated against. And because we're publicly funded, we have to allow everybody who can possibly come in. I don't know, Scott, if that's a law.
I would not base a board decision based upon the information you've gotten. That needs to be researched. That sounds like a lot of nonsense to me.
Really?
But yes,
It also, I think we've already covered the base in the sense that we've decided that we don't want to make our staff be the people who decide who can come in and who can't. And so I think it's almost a moot point. It'd be good to find out what this is a rule, but it seems like it's a moot point since we don't enforce it anyway.
Well, if we want to do some research on it, that would be great. I don't know if I can, where I'll find anything out, but I can see.
no. Don't do that research. I'll see what I can find out.
Okay.
It's
I think
just,
from a
you got things that you're capable of doing. That's a very challenging issue.
Well, I'm going to leave it to the lawyer then.
I'll leave it. I'll see if I can find someone who actually knows this stuff.
Okay.
Bill de Blasio is looking for things to do. You can ask him,
Who's looking for stuff to do?
the former mayor of New York City. Who's the one
Oh,
that
de Blasio.
instituted this thing, we had to have a vaccination to go to a restaurant.
From a practical point of view, the next 4 weeks, it's also kind of the height of the worst winter stuff, the most problematic that, there could be weather issues affecting programs, everything else. I feel like kind of punting this for another month is not the worst thing in the world, as
I
other
agree.
people mentioned too. So I think let's do that. Let's revisit it and see where we are in a month.
I think we should have a motion so we formally decide one way or the other.
Do what?
I think that we should make a motion if we're going to decide this kind of a policy. I think we've begun to reach the point where we should be thinking about changing it. So we should have a motion if we want to postpone another month.
So do we have to have if we're not changing something, do we have to have a motion for that then? Or do we just,
Certainly sounds logical. I mean, we are, even if we aren't changing anything, we are taking a decision.
it's okay with me one way or the other, I suppose.
It sounds like we've made our decision. Whether we document it through making a motion or not makes no difference. If you feel more comfortable in that, we can take a vote.
Why don't you make that motion, Ed?
Okay, I make the motion that well, I guess I don't want to make the motion because I was going to vote against the motion, which is why I wanted to have it.
Ooh, no one doesn't like that.
I'm not the one to make the motion unless you want me to make a motion no one else will vote for. I think it's time for us to start letting people decide for themselves. And this is going to go on forever if we don't start taking some risks. I mean, I look at the places where they take the risks and they're doing a lot better than the places where they don't take the risks. And so I think it's time to start taking them.
I'm actually starting to, lean that direction, Ed, in terms of feeling like we're going to reach a point where we just need to be able to move forward in certain things. But I do think things there's still enough uncertainty at the moment and high numbers that I'm okay for another month continuing as is. I think as Scott said too, I'm not sure that any of our programs at the moment are so important that another month is going to be make or break. So we'll stick with our current policy for a month. We'll revisit in February. And good news is we'll be moving towards spring as well with more opportunities for open windows outside, all of that coming up. Okay. Treasurer's report.
Before you go there, so
oh.
do you want to accommodate this and just make a motion that we continue our policy as is for the next month?
Sure.
It's whatever. It's either way is fine from my end.
Okay. Well, you want to, I mean, if we want to be formal about it, this isn't my strong suit, so I don't know. So you want to make the motion?
Sure, I'll make the motion. I just
Okay.
make the motion again. Let's maintain our policy for the next month.
Okay.
I second it.
And that's of not having in-person programs.
So Sarah seconded, all in favor? Aye. So one opposed.
Yes.
Thank you. So noted. Melanie,
So the treasurer's report, there is not too much to report in our first month in the year. We're still waiting for our $95,000 from the town. So I haven't started doing the calculation that I was doing last year to see where we're at in spending versus how much money we have, because that's obviously a big effect to that. But I did move the $15,000 that we voted on moving into our special projects account. The reserves that we voted on for 2022, I'm not moving until we get our check from the town, so that hopefully will happen soon. And just for interest, since last year, I was doing the monthly projection on how much cushion we would have left at the end of the year. We ended the year with about $75,000 in our cash flow account. So the money market savings, which is the one that we regularly use, the business savings, which we just have to have as a placeholder, and the checking account. So that was a little bit of an average of the monthly cushion projections, but also interesting to know that we had that much money left over at the end of the year outside of our special projects account. So I think that's all I have, unless anyone has questions.
So Melanie, with what you define as the cushion coupled with the special projects, how much do we have in the bank?
I would have to do a little bit of math for that, but I
can tell you, Melanie, I've got the accounts up right now. So in the bank, we have $126,338.36.
that also includes though the Zoop account and the scholarship account.
Exactly.
And that's like 12,000 or that's more than that?
No, the scholarship account has almost 22,000 and the Zoop account has
5,700.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're about 100.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's good.
Yeah, and we're waiting for a 95,000. So next month
I'll sue the town if necessary.
they've always gotten to us pretty quickly, so
They're doing some cash management now.
I'll just mention that I attended the not UHLS, but the book club, the trustee book club, which now I'm going to fully admit, when I first heard about this trustee guide book club, I rolled my eyes really hard and just thought, please spare me. Who's going to go to this book club? But I will admit I was wrong. It was actually very informative. It's not really a book club. It's kind of I think a clever little thing, but we weren't all sitting around talking about, which chapter was our favorite or anything. It was just a good presentation of materials. This one happened to be about finance and budgeting. People can submit questions in advance. People can ask questions through the chat during the session. And there was several questions and discussions around reserve funds and, how to handle them properly. It's another area where they suggest having some policies in place so it's clear, how you're doing that. And that, basically as long as you are, I think we're generally handling it correctly, as long as you have a purpose in mind for this money you're putting into reserve, if you get audited or whatever, people are okay with that. It's you can't just have a rainy day fund. So I think we'll be in even better shape in this area as we get through the master plan and all the other planning we're doing, where we can have a little bit more specific, that it's not just like, yeah, we think we're going to need this money to do something maintenance wise. We actually kind of have a bit more plan. I think we'll be in really good shape with that. So anyway, they are useful sessions if anybody is inclined to participate. So.
Well, Jim, what happens if we end up with more money than they would describe as being adequate or as necessary? What do we do with it? I mean,
No, I mean, I think
Melanie planned to have a party.
I think the idea is if you're putting money away and you're saying, we expect, there's $5,000 for painting and there's whatever, $25,000 for roof repair and all of that, as long as you're sort of justifying that you have a reason why you're saving these funds and not spending that money that's coming into you, that's being given to you to provide a service, as long as you have that plan for that, you're okay. You can't just be like, well, just in case something happens someday, we kind of want this cushion of, money that's just there.
You don't have any mad money, right?
Right.
At this point, we seem to have, once we get the $95,000, basically a year's budget in reserve. And I'm just wondering, at what point are we going past what we would actually need to have a reserve? And let's assume we do, what do we do with the excess money?
So one, I would say if we were actually in that position, spend it. You're really supposed to spend it at that point. If you're asking for that money and you're saying that's what you're providing services with that, you got to do it. But I suspect as we get through that master planning project and we have an outline of what maintenance we're going to need, what all that and the projects, I don't think it's going to be a problem.
I don't think it's a long-term problem, but
Yeah. So I think we're okay for now.
I was thinking, a trip to the Caribbean for the staff and for the board of the library, that would be fantastic.
then we can have Melanie's party.
You laugh. One of our commissioner sits on a public authority board. And we just learned that the public authority decided to pay for the way of all the folks on the board of the trustees to go to a seminar in New Orleans, which seemed to raise some issues for this particular public authority. So
coincidentally during Mardi Gras.
Just saying.
It was a joke. It was just totally a joke.
I understand that, but it's just like people do some like really strange things.
Well, I'm just going to put it on the record. It was a joke.
Okay, there you go.
Will a large cash reserve affect our ability to get grants, pro or con?
I
don't think so. I mean, again, I think if it's earmarked for specific purposes, I don't think that would be the same kind of issue.
My recollection is they don't look at your financials. What they're interested in is seeing whether you've got the ability to match. And that's generally what the grants take a look at. But I confess I'm not intimately familiar with what granting authorities look at.
I just don't want somebody to say, well, you have too much money and you don't need the grant.
Yep.
I don't think we're there.
I hear that. Yeah, I think if we get our ducks in a row with getting this more specifically outlined, then it's really not, it's there for a particular purpose, not just sitting around waiting for something to spend it on. And probably Paul can advise a little on that in terms of his experience with other libraries in that process.
We'll just have to build bigger and better, that's all.
Okay, anything else for treasurer's report?
Good job, Melanie. Keep that money rolling in.
But not rolling out.
Okay, fundraising report. So I'm not going to go over every detail, but I tried to outline just some of the points of interest in terms of the details. So the good news is we've way surpassed our goal of 10,000. We're at over 18,000, which is terrific. There were a couple areas where I was a little disappointed. Very few of our new card holders responded. And overall, our total number of donors total number of donors was 121 and only 69 of them are card holders, which is kind of interesting. I don't know if it's good or bad, but just interesting, I suppose, for now. We did have most of our previous large donors donated again. There's 3 that have not yet so far. And we had about 52 new donors. So that also seemed good, seemed worthwhile to grab them in. I'll let you look at the rest of the details. I won't go into it, but I think overall the approach seemed to work pretty well. And I think that, we have some things to think about for the next annual appeal, maybe focusing on some of the people just doing an email campaign to them if it wasn't worth sort of the effort of the paper copy to people who probably aren't going to respond. We did get several people responding to the email campaign. We did get online donations coming in. So overall, pretty good and happy with that. In terms of planning for the next year, so I have some deeper thoughts to share. But what I talked about last time was scheduling a meeting in January to start talking about fundraising for 2022. And Melanie, Kim, and I have done a little back and forth. We started a shared document to just capture any ideas of fundraising ideas people have. So when we go for planning, we can sort of talk through them. The other thing is Kim provided a lot of reports for me to look at to try to see previous fundraising efforts and what kind of money came in from them and what expenses were associated with them. I will admit it's super hard to go through and make a lot of sense of, and some of it probably requires some people who knew what was going on to comment on it. But definitely some interesting things there. One thing that I am talked a little bit to Kim and Melanie about through email is I feel like we've had sort of a convergence of different things between different conversations we've had between the strategic planning process and Ed and your comments around, tying the budget to that as well, and our thoughts of doing that, and then attending some of these library training things. It just kind of gelled some stuff that it's nothing really new. It's all stuff we've all talked about. But for me, for this year, what I really started to feel like we needed to focus on is not so much right now burning ourselves out with trying to come up with some of these smaller fundraising efforts that take a lot of planning and time, but to try to keep ourselves focused on some of the higher level stuff, higher level and foundational. So I don't know, they're kind of in conflict in my metaphors here, but to get some of those things in order, and to really be in good shape to be able to move on some of these plans that we're going to be spending this year getting in place. One of the things that we need to think about is finding the most secure funding sources for operational costs, which is what the 414 provided for us. That's really what that did. And we're in great shape because we were able to do that. But as we look at the increases in expenses and operational expenses and things, sort of planning ahead, looking at that 3 to 5 year window, thinking about, are we going to need to request additional taxpayer funding at some point? How do we want to approach that? What do we want to do to get in place to make sure that we could be successful in doing that? And with the master plan happening, a lot of what we're going to need some of that in place to really understand what kind of fundraising we're going to need to do, and use that as part of our planning for that purpose. I think as we look at the bigger picture, we also need to use this time to think about our service plan, evaluating, what we're offering, is that the right thing for the community? Again, it's all the stuff that's in the strategic plan as well, but just sort of giving that focus this year, and then the staffing, and because that's all going to affect, as Ed has pointed out before, that all affects how we plan our budgets moving forward. And as we think about operational costs, what's that going to mean? Are we going to be able to cover that? And if not, what's our plan for that? So as all of these things came together, I just sort of felt like I think this year I don't see I think if we focus on another strong annual appeal, it's relatively low effort. I mean, there's effort involved, but it's not, we know how to do it, that kind of thing. If we look at other kinds of passive opportunities, selling merchandise, things like that, things that are kind of a one-time setup, not a lot of ongoing planning and effort. And things like, if we have a program in place, can we supplement by some sort of thing? So if we do the live at the library this year, is there something we can do? Can we sell mocktails or something that can just tie into that, where people already are? So focusing on that kind of thing so that we can really make sure that we're doing this other planning process, looking at things like, getting the policy work done. So we have that in place. We have a firm thing, working with Paul, we'll get that master plan in good order so that we really know how we're going to move forward with that. To me, that feels like the focus for this year. And the other thing is, the continuing our community building, because all of this is the success of all of this is going to depend on the fact that we build a strong community that's going to support all of this. And so, we know we have really important work to do right now to get new board members, just the ones that we actually, have to do to replace board members, let alone our goals of increasing the number. We have to deal with the youth committee chair position that needs to get filled. Those are two big lifts already. And we want to sort of use the opportunity that we've started with what Kim has done to reach out to expired card holders. Who can we bring back into the fold? Can we clean up our data? Can we clean up our mailing list to know who we really have? And can we be a little bit strategic in how we reach out to people? So to me, that feels like a lot, but it's really important thing. So I would like to try to have us stay kind of focused on that level. And, that really wasn't the fundraising report, but that was my big picture thoughts on this.
But Jen, it raises the issue, or how you use fundraising to build community and vice versa. So like some of we'll make our decisions, whatever we make, but you sort of need to create a certain presence. And also, to the extent that you're going to be asking for, let's say, a capital campaign, which is, I think we're sort of on the cusp of doing once we get, Paul's views and when we figure out what our space needs are. But you're going to need some sort of events just to show the community that the library leadership is working their butts off to raise money for the library. So that's the other, it's all interrelated. And yeah, you don't want to kill yourselves to raise $350, and you want to figure out how to do it efficiently. But there are some items that you probably need to do, even though they require some work, just to sort of remind people that we're, let's just say, working on the community's behalf to make sure that the library is fiscally sound and raising money. So you're going to bump into that as well. I'm not disagreeing with anything you say. I was just saying that, yeah.
I hear you, and I agree. I think one of the things that's challenging with the library is that a lot of program ideas, things that we could think of as fundraising ideas, are things that we offer for free. And that balance of showing our value to the community by offering these programs that are there for the community versus, hey, that's a great program that you can maybe raise some money doing, is kind of a weird, hard balance sometimes. And right now with the extra challenge of can we even do any of these programs? It's
hard.
It's hard.
It's hard.
Any other questions on annual appeal, or two thoughts on the deep thoughts presentation?
One question for you, Jen. Could you send me I'd really like to see the historic stuff. I know we have a database which shows who's been given over the years. If you could shoot that file over to me, I'd really like to take a look at it and see if there's information that can be teased out of it.
Sure.
For example, I'm curious why we lost 50 and gained 50. It's just sort of an interesting, who did we lose? Why? Did they move?
lost in terms of,
My recollection is, unless I misread your report, that we got approximately 50 new donors
mhm.
and we lost about 50 past donors.
Is
Or
that
did I read that wrong?
I'm trying to see. I don't, did I say that? I don't think I said that.
No, I may have misunderstood. But regardless, if you could shoot that over to me, I'd be curious
Sure.
to see.
Yeah. Oh, I think I was saying that there, it was in the, you're right. No, I see what you're saying. Yes, 50 that didn't donate this year did in 2021. A couple who moved, a couple who donated, or a different timing, but yes. So we have the. Got it. Anybody else? Okie dokie. So what's up next? I lost my agenda in the pile of papers. Here we go. Strategic planning.
I didn't realize you keep turning us off.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. There's not much to report, other than the fact that I tried to finalize the plan to everybody's, incorporate everybody's thoughts and everything I was supposed to put in before. And so I think it's just opened up for a vote, so we can put it to bed and go on to next year's effort. So I guess I make a motion that we approve the plan for 2022.
I'll second that motion,
Mhm.
unless there's discussion.
Anybody have any discussion or comments? It looked good to me when I was peeking through it before the meeting. Thank you for making the updates, Ed. Any other questions? Okay, all in favor of approving?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Ed. And I really do think that, even though I know you feel it's lacking the specificity you'd like to see in some areas, I really do think that as we look at this and we review it, it really is helpful and useful and helps us keep our eyes on what's most important. And I think we will be building those more specific plans. And I totally agree that, tying this more closely to the budgeting process is something we want to do. And I think we will do now as we move forward. So thank you, Ed.
Well, I think it's also going to be tied in with this master plan, and we will be doing a lot more thinking about long-term than we have in the past. It's come a long way in the last 8 years, but we'll get there.
Okay, so speaking of the master plan, I think that's next on the agenda. So there's a write-up of the kickoff meeting with Paul. I'll just hit on a couple highlights, and then Kim, Sarah, if you want to chime in on anything. So a couple of things just to make sure that the board knows for moving forward with this. So Kim is our point person with Paul. So we want to avoid, and he wants to avoid having a million people pepper him with all kinds of questions or suggestions or whatever. So if we have any of those, we can send them to Kim. She will keep that communication streamlined and make sure that we're not sending conflicting things.
That's a big debate, but one theory believes that homocysteine is osmotic, what defines it.
There's some other audio happening.
Oh, you might be. Hey, Logan. I think we can hear. That might have been it.
Okay. I was like,
Yep.
Okay, no problem. Just wondering. And then anything we've sent him our current list of our sort of short-term projects in mind for him to review. So he can flag if there's anything that he thinks, like, wait, pump the brakes. This is really going to be something that's considered as part of this. Don't move forward and do something that might have to get reversed or wouldn't be good. So if we have any of those that come up, he's willing to review that. He did say, it really does happen. He cited some library that I think they erected a sign on the grounds right where they were gonna do something else. So they put it up, they had to take it back down for the construction. So, avoiding things like that is probably a good idea. And I'm glad that he's willing to review our plans. So Kim did send those over. And he does want us to confirm the makeup of the committee. It sounds like his concern regarding the possibility of having a committee meeting become a public meeting due to the size of it is something that Scott said is not actually an issue. But that said, we do want to confirm with him who the committee is. Everyone, all of the board members will get presentations, all of that. So it's not that the full board won't be able to participate in that way, but for the back and forth and the meetings and things like that, the smaller group is more helpful at keeping things moving along. Kim and Sarah, I'll turn it over to you for any other details.
The only thing that I have to mention is, we in reading through the references, people consistently said how great the company was at getting the public on board with what they were doing. And Paul wants to have one of those meetings. For some reason, I can't remember what it's just like. It sounds like charade, but it's that what is?
It's a public charrette.
Charrette, yes. He wants to have a charrette. And he specifically asked us if we knew of any red flags that he should be aware of, just things that are different about the town, issues that people might have with the library. And I mentioned the tax thing that, plenty of people were behind it. The majority were behind it, but those that weren't had sort of hold it in their craw a little bit. And I also sent on the feedback that we got in the survey so he could look through that, because that kind of gives a lot of color about what the town politics are on all sides. So that's all that I had additional to what Jen said.
The only other thing I can think of is that, as I'm looking through my notes, is that he wanted us to also start thinking about what we're going to have, what's the amount of money that we're going to have to work with for our matching grants. So that's something that obviously we were just talking about, sort of, trying to kind of figure that part out. He did say that he's going to be giving us 1 to 2 drawings that would be within the footprint of our building, to see if that's the way we want to go. Then he's going to give us 1 to 2 plans for something a little bit out, extending and making things bigger in the building, and then something that's kind of halfway in between. So we're going to be getting at least 3 new plans on what we might want to try and do for the building, and have to change things up. On my part, he's been given the property map. He's been given all of our utility expenses and usages so that they can see where things are for that. And I haven't yet heard from anybody about setting up any meetings, but he also had said that half his staff was out with COVID or being quarantined. So he wasn't sure when that was going to happen. I'm hoping that means he hasn't gotten it, and that's why we haven't heard from him yet. But I'll touch base with him probably next week and just see where things are at, where things stand. So, and I think that was pretty much it.
Any other questions? And Ed, we did include the information. We have had that, I can't remember if we talked about it at the last meeting or what, but some questions around ventilation in the building, and is there any mitigations we can do in the short term? Ed has very helpfully provided some background on that. And then we sent that along to Paul as well, so that's part of our consideration. But
Good, thank you.
okay, building and grounds.
We have a list of priorities. We've shared them with Paul. We'll see what they come back with in connection with that. I guess we should be thinking about landscaping, and we cut down some dead trees. So all in all, for not doing a whole lot, we got some stuff accomplished.
Cool.
That's my
Great for
report.
night's egg, I have to say. I was impressed.
No, you should be hooray for the storm, because but for that, they never would have been out. in
I
the
know,
area.
that was so
It was,
lucky.
it was like they expected a bigger storm. They had their crews out here and they didn't have anything to do. So they said, hey, let's call Scott. And they did. And I said, do you have chainsaws and a chipper? And they said, well, we have chainsaws, but we don't have our chipper, but we can cut down your trees.
Mhm.
And I said, we're not tree haters. Just tell us which ones are dead or dying and we can't do anything with it. And the rest is history.
They made us chipper.
It wasn't, I mean, they said that there wasn't going to be that much wood. Passing by the library today, was that the total amount of wood that they didn't ship? Looked like
No,
a
there was
small pile
some,
of wood.
there's still piles of wood. Some of it, Logan and I took for our,
Oh, okay.
to do stuff with. But there's still stuff left for other people to grab. And the two people who've been interested, the one person hasn't, I don't know if they've been back or not. So we'll be calling whoever tomorrow.
And the trees were larches, weren't they?
Yeah.
So they're soft wood and they
Mhm.
throw a lot of creosote out. So I wouldn't put them up a chimney
No.
unless they want to give the fire department a little bit more business.
I'm sure they could use a rest.
Yeah, I think so.
Had enough
So
chimney fires.
that's where we are with the building.
And I am intending to reach out to Andrew Zima. The tab is still open on my browser. I was going to do that today before I got waylaid. So we'll start with him per Alice's recommendation and see if he can come out. Anything else? Questions? Okay. Brand and marketing.
Yeah, I just have a few things and then I'll turn it over to Noe to update us on how things are going with the website upgrade. I really don't have very much. One thing is that we wanted to continue to stay engaged around the Stephentown newsletter idea and the business directory idea. And there were about 5 or 6 people in the town that wanted to be involved as well. And we had a meeting on the 3rd where we all pretty much agreed that both should be web-based. Ideally, they should be housed in some way that is neutral. So it wouldn't be the libraries. It wouldn't be, I mean, the town board would be great, but we aren't expecting them to have the ability to do it or the interest in doing it. So we think that we need to kind of get something underway first. Robin Catalano said that she would be kind of happy and interested in doing the newsletter in terms of the writing and editing part of it, but she has no interest in doing the running around trying to collect information from the different organizations on what's coming up in the month and so on. So she'd want somebody else to coordinate all of that. So we need to try to find somebody that would be interested in doing that, or she does, one or the other. And I put together a little Google input form for the business directory, and I just updated it today with some categories that the marketing committee can take a look at and see if how they feel about that. But I think the big question is, how involved do we want to be? What is the library's role in all of this? Or is this just really a handoff, that this is what bubbled up as something that community members really would like to have, these two things? And it, who should be doing it, and where should it sit if somebody succeeds in developing both or either of these things?
I'll just chime in quickly. I think at this point, I think the library would be willing to contribute, contribute to a newsletter if there's something to share there, contribute any expertise or things like that we can offer, and certainly publicize them all if they come to fruition. But it doesn't feel like there's a great role for the library. I mean, if any of us want to be involved, because we want to be involved, but I'm not sure that there's much that the library itself could do beyond that, sort of, supporting the effort, contributing to it as is appropriate for the library itself, and, helping publicize and get the word out. But that's my thought at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with Jen. I don't think there's a library function. We have enough things that we're not doing that are core to our being. I think it's a good thing. I just don't think it's what
Yeah,
we ought
no.
to be spending our resources on.
I get you, and I agree. So I guess my one question then is on the input form, who then would be sending this around to the various businesses and socializing it and trying to get them to update it, the information about their business, if it's not the library, but the form was created by us?
In a certain sense, I mean, I forget the name of the organization, which is the loose amalgam of the business folks. It
Yeah, the
seems to me
Stephentown
that
Community Association, I think they've kind of gone belly up, but yeah, they would be the right place.
yeah, I mean, that was my gut reaction, that if anyone should be interested in this, it's that organization. But if they're no longer organized, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're not. I can check in with Pam and see if I'm wrong about that, but I know they haven't had any meetings in months and months and months, and the last few meetings were kind of disappointing, to put it mildly. So
I mean,
I think we could. Sorry, Kim, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you have this thing that, the start of an input thing for the community business, maybe then that will get them going again, and you can just hand it over to them and say, here's the stuff, and maybe you can try again.
And well, they have a list of businesses, but they don't have a list of a comprehensive list of businesses and organizations. They just have the people that were part of their organization, and they don't have any information that would be helpful to, say, a new family coming to town about what these businesses do, what they offer, how they're special, where they're located, and any of that kind of stuff. So it's fairly rudimentary. So yeah, I mean, I will talk with her about it and see if she has any ideas about who might.
I mean, the second
run with it.
Good, Scott.
I was going to say the second runner-up would be the town, because in terms of getting the town organizations reporting and stuff, the town can get its message out. I mean, the town's website is awful.
Right.
I think that's being kind. And there's very little information up there, and it's hard to find. So they may not be the best people to ask to be doing this sort of stuff, but
I think they are revamping, though. I mean, they did say that they're putting a lot more effort into upgrading their systems. Now, how far that's going to go, I don't know, but I would think that updating the website would be part of that at some point.
Yeah, but aside from my gratuitous attack of the website, they seem to be would be an organization that may not have the staffing, but they would be the logical second choice in terms of showing that Stephentown is a vibrant community. It's got all the stuff going on and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so
yeah, and here's
so I vote for the town if the business organization isn't there.
Okay, all right. I can follow up first with Pam if I'm right about that no longer really being a functional organization, then I could follow up with PJ, I guess.
Nobody's going to want new work, but could this be a project for a high school student to gather the data and then hand it off to the town, for example, so that the town doesn't have to do the work?
That's a cool idea.
I don't know. We can. Who would be a appropriate contact for that? Certainly, I don't know if there's. I know high schoolers need volunteer hours and stuff, right? So.
Well, why don't we try to finalize the form itself, so that work would be done for whoever it is, and then we'll go from there and sort of socialize it with those three options and see if anybody takes us up on it.
And that form, that doesn't need to be associated with the library, even though we
Right.
started it, and that's easy enough to not have happen. And then, like I said, if it is moving forward, I think certainly something we can include in our newsletters, publicize it, and all of that, so we can participate that way.
Yep. Okay, great. So the only other thing, and then let's move on to the website, is the pricing. I'm still looking into getting pricing comparisons for merchandise, and I'm sort of shocked to find how difficult it is. Like you contact these businesses, and it's really hard to get information on how much stuff costs, and that's what they do, is sell the stuff. So I don't understand. I mean, I admit to not being like way out in front and doing it ahead of time as much as I should have, but like I can't get anybody to answer me on anything. They say, yeah, we'll get back to you, but then they don't. So anyway, I'm going to pull something together which will have a side by side on the pricing, and hopefully we can come, and I'll try to have a number of local places plus one that's more national that will probably beat the local places on price, but we'll see. And that's it for me. No way.
Yes. So work continues on the website. We met as a committee. I received a couple of suggestions on different elements that we have to integrate into the site. We've been also looking into other websites for other public libraries in the area and comparing, what they have versus what we want to have on our site. All these are taking into consideration, and today I met with Kim this morning actually, and we came up with several tweaks that we started making today, including adding different links to, for example, the town website, the different organizations such as the food pantry, the Stephentown Fire Department and such, just so it's a more informative website for any person who's visiting it. We will also be integrating a specific area for, recognition, I would say, for the staff. There's really not much on our current website that talks, anything about them. So that was one point that Kim brought up during our meeting today. And it would feel nice for the staff to be recognized and to have their part also in the site. We do have, as trustees, we will have a section of the site, and I was talking to Kim because the Upper Hudson limits our bandwidth in terms of like speed and the space that we have to store documentation and to store our website. And we were talking about the minutes and the director's report, the financial reports, and how these are supposed to be easily accessible. But because of this limitation, it will probably limit, how much of it can we put on the site. I know that we discussed, and she's gonna, follow up asking Upper Hudson, if we necessarily have to have all of this data on the site, or if it can be, maybe 5 years before, and then the rest, if anyone requests it, can just come directly to the library and ask for that information. So that's pretty much where we're standing right now.
Could we link off to a Google Drive so that, we just have a,
That would be
Link
something that she can ask Upper Hudson if they have any type of rules, in regards to that specifically.
I don't think there's any rules, but I don't know what our storage limit is on the Google Drive. I don't know that we have an unlimited amount of storage space. So for all the different websites, the emails and everything else that we're using for Google Drive on, for the director email or the director account and trustees and everything else, I don't know I'm not sure where we are. So I have to find out from Upper Hudson what our storage is. Because we have documents going all the way back to the 1940s. So it's a whole lot of data.
Documents that are posted somewhere?
These are documents actually right now on our current website. We have documents from the 1940s and 50s because that's just what I started doing. I have everything scanned from the 40s all the way up until the 2000 or no 1999. I'm working starting 2000. So
Maybe maybe you should work on a document purging policy as well.
no, this has all been purged. These are just minutes and director's reports and treasurer's reports later on in time. So these are, I'm doing this really more as an archival thing to make sure, that if the library were to burn down, at least we'd have all this stuff scanned and it's available. I just don't know legally what we have to have. I know we have to have our minutes and our reports accessible to the public, but I don't know how long. Like, do we need?
I'm saying, for example, I mean, bank records are kept 6 years. That different institutions establish different policies based upon what their needs are.
Mm-hmm.
And you may also go further back just because it's interesting, or you may want to create a historical archive that's accessible.
Right.
You don't need to store it. Electronic storing is really easy because, basically memory is cheap. But you're not like posting it anywhere and then make it available. I'm just saying that probably record retention, 6 years is probably more than sufficient on any of this stuff. And then it's a question of what you want to call. If there's litigation, they have different, you can have different policies, but it sounds like we have a lot of stuff that we really don't need. We may want, but
I don't know that we need, I think that it's a good history for the library. I don't think I would want to get rid of any of that stuff, even if it's, been over 7 years. I think that's like, there's a lot of stuff in there that I'm just looking back into the 1990s when we were starting to do stuff for the expansion and what happened back then, just all these things that we should have. And honestly, I think it's interesting. So that was the reason to do all this, was to start an archive so that people can have information for it.
So we are a library, and so having an archive is what we do. And so that's a good defense for doing it. Approximately how many gigabytes are you talking about in terms of data?
That's a good question. Let me look and see what my.
Noy, are we required to use the Upper Hudson Library system to host our website?
We're not required to, no, but if we didn't, it would mean that all of the stuff like the server and all the technical aspects would be up to us. And I can tell you right now that, that's not going to work. Especially, right now, if we have an issue with our website or something needs to be changed quickly and Noé is not available and I'm not available, then Upper Hudson can just go and do it. And they also keep all of the information. They're the ones who save it all. And it's definitely something we want Upper Hudson to be continuing to do. It's a good service for what we pay for. Right now, I only have 222 megabytes worth of data for the historical documents, but I'm only maybe like about halfway through. So I've got more than that.
Because for something like $90 a year, we have a website hosting or system, and they give us great service. And I forgot how many gigabytes we have, but we have several different websites and all kinds of other stuff on it. So it's a hefty amount. And I'm not sure what you're saying Upper Hudson Library System does for us. You have 2 people now who are doing all the updating. And I don't know how much we would have in the way of emergencies, but we'd actually, if both of you were not available for a day or something, would it make much difference to the activities of the library? And so I'm not, if indeed it's too slow for our purposes, this other service I think costs $90 a year. It's something like that. It's a token amount, and we get tons of immediate support, and technical support, blocking of virus intended emails, all kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
sometime that.
So Ed, to answer partially your question, we don't pay, extra for services such as, the backup of our site and the server maintenance. And even though, yes, there are certain, service providers that will allow us to put our website wherever we want, essentially, but there still has to be a person who will be in charge of like making the backups and making sure that everything is up to date on the back end of the website. Right now, our website is powered by WordPress. So Upper Hudson are the people who are in charge of making sure that everything WordPress related is updated in a sense that it will allow our website to continue to work efficiently.
Okay.
As of right now, what
So
I'm
that's
saying
not something-
in terms of the bandwidth and the speed, I'm talking about the speed that the changes, whenever I make some changes, it takes a little while for it to take effect, let's say. I showed Kim this morning. It's not something that will affect the live version of the website, but it does affect the speed in which I am able to work on it. Just because you click on something and you change, I don't know, a font, or you change a word, and you try to click save or update or whatever it is, and it takes a while for it to go into effect. That's what I'm talking about when I say bandwidth or speed.
Okay. All right, then.
We talked about the possibility of doing something called a dump site or something that we could put all of those documents into. So we're going to continue looking into figuring out a way to make sure that we can make it work. So
One thing I'd just like to add my 2 cents on the topic. If we can focus on getting what's critical to have on the website up and running, in our current documents and things like that. The archive, I agree. I think there's a lot of value in having that, both for our own purposes and there is like historical interest kind of thing. And as I think Ed said, we're our library. But if that lags behind being able to get the new site launched with our current information and all of that, I would be in favor of taking a phased approach that we incorporate that after.
yeah, that's definitely something that's happening. We were just kind of going over all of the different options at this point, and then now what we're going to do is we're looking at each and every aspect and how can we, what parts do we have to have now? What can we wait to put up later? So we're definitely trying to get it up as soon as we can.
Yeah, maybe as simple as you don't need certain things on the website, you just store the documents. You have the archive, but they don't necessarily need to be accessed through a website.
Yeah, potentially. And I mean, at some point, I think we'll probably want to have it, but like I said, it's a process, and we're going to do as much of the immediate stuff now, get it running, and then build it up as it goes.
I recommend that you have some off-site storage after you've done all of this work scanning those documents.
We already have. They're all scanned, and I've saved everything up until a couple weeks ago. So, yep, everything's saved. It's also been put in archival sleeves and an archival.
Is it all in the
binders.
library though?
Yep, it's all at the library. So
You need some off-site storage.
true.
Just copies off. If the library burns, that's gone.
You can put the whole thing on a single.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
I'm
Take it
gonna
home.
no, that's what I'm gonna do. Is I'll put it on a zip drive and just keep it at my house, and I'll maybe make another one, and we can keep it at Jen's house or whoever wants to keep one as we go.
Does anybody have any more questions for Noe about the website?
Thanks for all of your work on that. I know it has been a little bit frustrating process, so thanks for sticking with it. Recruitment, Rebecca's not here, but I'm going to reiterate what we talked about earlier. We really need to get recruiting new trustees, including the youth committee chair. We wrote up some language, we adopted some language we had written last year around the 2 positions. And we are talking about, well, one, running it in the newsletter. I think trying to reach people who are already engaged with us is probably our best bet. We might try running something like that in the Eastwick Press, other places like that. We'll do some Facebook posts around it. But I think we all know that we've mostly been successful by, reaching out personally to people as well. So go make some new friends, bring them into the library. I don't know what to say. I know we've all asked a lot of the people we know, but we really need to, we need to address this. I don't know if anyone has had any other ideas or thoughts or suggestions for folks. But it's a challenge for sure.
And we don't have any bites for the youth committee whatsoever. No one has expressed an interest.
Mm-mm.
Have we asked the volunteer group whether anyone's interested in doing the youth committee stuff?
We haven't, but we could send what we wrote up to that group.
Might be, I mean, in terms of strategic planning, in terms of building community, I mean, that's like such a critical function.
Mhm.
And it seems like finding someone who's got a family and is sort of interested in doing that is sort of like an ideal person. We just have to find that person.
And then hang on to them.
Well, yeah, don't let them go.
Youth committee, it's a little early, but soon I think the Easter party planning will be starting. That's the next big event for there. Moving on, administrative committee, policy work. So John and I spoke, I think last week, about having him take a lead role on helping us get the policy work running and going and getting that completed. And as Kim mentioned, so Sarah had started some work with Kim on an inventory of all the policies and their status in terms of when they were written, if they've been updated, if they conform to format, that kind of stuff. Kim mentioned she's found the fact that we have some stuff in the employee handbook that is essentially policies. So I'll turn it over to John. Thank you, John, for stepping up for that.
I'll be in touch with you, Kim, because it seems like you're the holder of most of this information right now. So I'll be in touch.
Okay, that sounds great. I have a bunch of files and different stuff that I can give to you, and we can start the process.
Appreciate it, guys. It is important to get done. It seems like in everything that we hear, everything is essentially have a policy and follow it.
Right.
Not that it doesn't matter what the policy is, but it's almost more important just the fact that you have one and you follow it. So it'd be great
To the extent that you
we're all
need,
familiar with it.
to the extent you need other policies, working at the state, we got plenty of policies. So I've got access to policies galore. So if you're looking for models, I can get you models. They won't necessarily be library policies per se, but they address a lot of the issues that any institution has.
I also did sit in on a webinar specifically about library policies and wrote up notes on that. So I'll get that over to you.
Great.
Okay. All right. Anything else on administrative? Old business. The one item I knew of old business was the ERC thing. Ed?
But I had thoughts on this. The fellow that has worked on our stuff has explained it to me a little bit more in depth. And based on the fact that we had a payroll of about $60,000 last year, assuming it was level, the ERTC applies to the first 3 quarters of 2021 and more in 2020, but 2021. The payroll we had was $60,000 for the year, around $45,000 for the 3 quarters. And we would collect about 70% of that from the government. And so we would get somewhere in the high 20s of thousands of dollars if we get the CRTC. So what I'm thinking might be a good idea is to have our accountants, from our company, just to attend and make a short presentation at our next meeting, explaining what's involved. Because it's clear from what Melanie and Kim said, is our current accountant either is incapable or unwilling to figure out how to do it. And it's not very complicated. I mean, he sent me the breakdown of how he did it for our companies, and it seemed pretty simple to me. And then there's more money for 2020. It's not nearly as much, but it's probably another $5,000–7,000. So we're talking about a third of our entire budget we could get back from the IRS. I think it's worth having somebody come and tell us exactly how it works and explain to us whether we should go ahead and do it. But it would entail getting a different accountant, which may be a good thing. We've been talking about replacing the accountant on and off for a long time.
So is the person that you're speaking with somebody who can do that for, and like, I assume we're different since we're nonprofit?
Yeah, I don't know all the details. I mean, in terms of how you define whether you're eligible for this for a profit-making company, is you would have to have your sales or something similar be less than what they were in 2019 by a major percentage. And we have a lot less activity. I'm pretty sure that we are qualified. And I, just like that, the man talk to us and see if he agrees, because he's capable of doing it if indeed we are qualified. And the amount of money is a major portion of our annual budget. It's worth it if we can do it. So I'd be happy to ask Mike if he'd be willing to talk to us for a couple minutes at the beginning of the next meeting.
Does this
And
have
what's
to be
the
done?
name?
Pardon?
Got.
Kim,
I just wanted to know if there's a certain amount of time, like, is there a time frame this has to be done by?
Yes, 2 years, which means that the 2020 stuff probably should be done pretty soon.
Ed, what's the name of the program?
Well, ERTC, Employee Retention Tax Credit.
And this would be an IRS administered program?
Yeah, it's not the SBA, it comes from the IRS.
I'll see if I can find anything on their website.
So is the person you're speaking to, is there something we can provide them that would just be able to let them say yes or no in terms of we in fact would be qualified, or what would?
I can ask them specifically. I just want to get authorization because last year we had the opportunity to get the PPP. Yeah, the PPP, and the board voted down the idea of getting that, even though it was, from the perspective of the board, free money. So I don't want to go out and badger him if we're going to vote this down again. But I thought it was not a good idea to refuse the money last year, and I think the same thing. We should take what we can get. We're paying taxes for it. We may as well take it if we can get it.
We're not really paying taxes for it.
For the well, our children and our grandchildren are. So whatever it is, it's not free money to the society, but it is to the Stephentown Library. All we have to do is fill out a couple of forms, take a couple of hours to figure out how to do.
I had started looking it up, and it was confusing to me just because in order to find out if you're eligible, you had to say that you hadn't earned any money, or you had to show the smaller amount of earnings. But we don't have earnings, so I wasn't sure how you would, I couldn't even get past that part. I was like, well, if you can't show that, what do you do?
Yeah, no, I understand exactly what your reluctance is. And even as I was saying it a couple minutes ago, was saying the same thing. I don't know exactly how we qualify, but my belief and understanding is that we do. But it's, you know, it's worth finding out. I mean, the upside is tremendous if we can get it.
So
Yes, as I recall, back in the day, we were concerned that given the way we were funded, by seeking those funds, we would be depriving some businesses that would otherwise be entitled to get it. We're in a different position and there's a lot of different money now. So whatever considerations guided our view the last time on a different program, I don't know that they're applicable this time. If there's just sort of a tax credit that you're able to get and we qualify, I agree. I think we should go after it. I'll see what I can find out.
Are we in agreement? Because I'll be happy to talk to him. I mean, even if you find more about it, you still need someone to do it. I mean, it's not falling off a log. There is something, and the information has to be collected and analyzed. I mean, it takes a couple of hours, but it's.
yeah, if you're able to get the more specifics and get that understanding of if in fact we qualify and how we would prove that, I think that would be very helpful to knowing if we can move forward with it.
Well, I know that my wife's school, which is a nonprofit that doesn't have revenues and, you know, and that are intended to make money, got hundreds of thousands of dollars out of this. So it's, I would be surprised if we can't get something.
Okay. Well, thanks for looking into that further then.
Okay, we'll do that.
Any other old business? Our one member of the public appears to have gone to bed, so no public comment.
Maybe that is the comment.
Boring.
I would have seconded that motion. New business. I'm just going to mention just sort of a thinking ahead thing. Even though it's only January, before we know it, it'll be April annual meeting time. It's also when we are electing officers, forming our committees. So actually, I shouldn't mention this in advance. I don't want anyone to think of reasons to not be on a committee or be an officer. So no, but please be thinking ahead of that. Any other new business? In correspondence, you can find it in the Google Drive. I'm just going to tell you quickly, there's a couple of NYLA updates. NYLA has had like a lot of internal
Drama.
stuff going on. Yeah. So there's some of that, some of the updates on where they are on some of that. They also have a newsletter that includes some information on questions around open meeting laws. So for people interested in that, there's some interesting information there if you click through those emails. The open meeting law has been, the exceptions to it have been extended now in a generic fashion to tie to the pandemic. So rather than a date where the governor will review it again, it's sort of tied to the pandemic emergency stuff. There's an update on that. There's any of the UHLS trainings. There's some emails about those upcoming that I think we've mentioned all of them in advance. But the other thing I just wanted to share there, we'll end on a really positive note. So we got several replies. People replied to some of the annual appeal emails. Some people just letting us know that they moved or whatever. But we got a really nice one. I'm just going to pull it up. So we had someone write back and he said, I loved my time in Stephentown. He's since moved back to Massachusetts. He thanked the library. He said, the library helped me greatly. I was poor and did not even have money for a cell phone. My plan ran out. I was outside the library trying to get Wi-Fi to call parents and have them pick me up. He said, I was cold, alone, broke, sad, and scared. The librarian is a good woman. Now, this is kind of funny. The one with the long leather boots. I don't know who that is.
I don't know either.
But she said she talked to me and was so generous with her time. The next day, he was involved in losing everything, and she made me feel like a human being. So he thanked us for our generosity, and he said, the library has a community. It was one of the places that made Stephentown a lot more enjoyable. So I just wanted to share that, you know, a lot of those small, seemingly small gestures that we make, and some of the people who come in, it doesn't seem like you're doing a whole lot to help them, but it really means a lot. And I think that really speaks to all the things that we hope to be for the community. So I thought that was really nice. And he wrote back several times. So he was clearly engaged with us that way.
He thought you were the one with the long boots.
Oh, you think it was that kind of email?
But I do want to point out another happy thing is that the fact that anybody knows about this is a credit to Sarah, because we can now get Google Docs in our homes and places of work.
Well done.
I have a feeling the lady with the long boots was Amy, because I think she was just a feeling. So I might reach out to her and see if she remembers this person, because that might make her day.
Yeah.
Almost sounds poetic, Amy with the long boots.
Right?
I mean, Bess, the landlord's daughter. I mean,
Oh, that's great.
That's really nice.
Well, it's 9 o'clock on the dot. Shall we adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All right. All in
Aye.
favor? Thank you, everyone, for your patience this evening, and all of